The number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Having the privilege of attending an international dirt bike launch is pretty much the pinnacle of moto journalism. The way it works is the manufacturer, in this case KTM, they want to basically get the leading magazines from all over the world. In Australia, you know, pretty safe to say ADB is the leading mag, but there's also a couple of other editors that were along for this trip. And the whole point is to create mass exposure for their brand, or their new models, if you like. So Sam Mack made the decision to send me instead of himself. It's quite a good gig. If you're the editor of the magazine, you're naturally invited along, but he chose to send me as a freelancer and give feedback on ADB's behalf. I've been to a few launches in my time, and KTM always put on a good show. I mean, this year was no exception. We were in this resort in a little town called Barga in Italy, and as it turns out, it's the home of the infamous Hell's Gate Extreme Enduro. The cool thing about it is that prior to the launch, KTM had been using that facility to develop and set up their entire 2012 range. So by the time we got there, these new models were conditioned to that landscape.
It was great to see you riding today. I could see big smiles in your faces. I hope you really enjoyed the bike. What I heard were just very positive comments, and I think it's of course the bike on one hand, but I think it's also the wonderful terrain. It's a real unique place here. It's not common to have such a terrain, such an endless area which is owned by a private company and available for really riding tough enduro. That's not common in Europe, and I'm really happy having chosen this location for the presentation of the new EXCs, which is the home of, of our test crew, which really does all the testing all over the year, and it's really one of the best locations to really improve and develop a new motorcycle. And I think it was really a great choice to be here and to really show you guys where we make our new motorcycles.
Hell's Gate, Yoki.
Ah, I forgot Hell's Gate! Oh, Jesus!
It's easy to get sucked into the whole international aspect of being flown into another country and waited on hand and foot, literally, fed all you can eat, you know, open bar. There's no expense spared, really, to a certain degree. But I choose to see through all the bullshit, if you like, and just ride the bikes for what they are. KTM, you know, if they just gave us some cordial and biscuits and a half-assed test track and said, go for your life, see what you think. And in all honesty, the bikes are that good. It didn't matter which model I got on. Not at any point did I feel the need to make adjustments to the setup, you know, change the clicker setting, compression, rebound. Nothing. They're very hard to fault. In fact, I couldn't fault them. It simply came down to how fast you could ride the track, how fast you wanted to ride. And as for the track, in true KTM style, they don't hold back. They set up an easy loop, which was, I don't know, apparently a good test of enduro, and then they set up a hard loop, which is a bit more of an extreme loop, if you like, and naturally I just thought, yeah, bring it on, let's go. I'm at Hell's Gate, let's just go and take it on and just conquer whatever it is they've got. But in doing that, you know, I'm sort of riding these bikes within their model range back to back, so I'm comparing one to the other. And I set myself up for a big day, because once I started on the hard loop, I had to ride every bike through the hard loop, and you know, it was a big day, but the best thing about it is you get a complete comparison between exactly what each model is doing and how the benefits of each model. The 200, for instance, great little bike. In some sections it was perfect. It really had its advantages, but in all honesty, it has the least amount of torque across the range, and on a lot of the extreme stuff it was pretty difficult to ride. You really had to, you know, be on the clutch and be throttle happy to sort of simulate torque, if you like, and it's quite erratic. You could stall it, flip it, anything goes, and it's an edgy little bike and great fun, but probably not the best pick if you're riding extreme. The 252 stroke, it's amazing what 50cc's can do. That engine especially is probably one of the best 252 stroke enduro packages you'll ever get. It's been that way for years now. I guess in all honesty it's my favourite bike. I don't know why, I'm just a bit of a sucker for two strokes. To ride a two-stroke properly is to really ride a dirt bike, you know. It doesn't... You have to ride it, you have to be on your game, and when you ask for the, you know, when you open the throttle, be ready for the power, but it's not erratic power. It's a great torquey engine, and in fact it was the one bike that I was on when I did a hot lap of the enduro loop with Sala, Giovanni Sala. I pretty much asked him, you know, I said, look, I need someone to be in shot for the helmet cam. Helmet cam footage looks a lot better when you've got another rider in front. A third of the way around he stops and he says, I go faster, yes? And I said, yeah, no worries, go for it. So he takes off, and I had to ride as fast as I can ride just to stick with him, and I'm thinking, shit, keep him in shot, you know, got to get this action footage, and that was a really good sign, because when you push to go at your maximum pace, you don't want to be thinking about any characteristics of the bike. It's just your line of sight and what's coming at you. If you're having to think about weird characteristics and allow for traits of the bike underneath you, you know, that's a fault in the design. It just is. It's the best way to bring any faults to the surface is to just be riding at your limit. And it was kind of cool that I did that with Sala, because he was on the 350 EXCF, I was on the 252 stroke, and he was hooking. We were both hooking, and the 252 stroke just did its thing underneath me.
I think KTM have a good product in this moment, because we work from a long time around enduro, even in motocross, but especially in this presentation we have a really good bike, because they work strong for this kind of bike. And this is the secret, you know.
Correct. Which size of your helmet? Because we can change it, they follow you. Okay. My one is quite small. Mine's medium. And I see the top difference with a new frame. Yeah. The front will stay there. Yes. And the back? Help me. Go!
The 300, I've got a soft spot for that. It's the bike that I originally rode at Erzberg in '07, and like the 250, it's just a lightweight powerhouse with heaps of torque. But the 300, that extra 50 cc's again, and the way that KTM have developed that power curve, it's pretty much the most 4-stroke, 2-stroke there is. I mean, you can set it up to be more aggressive with the power valve springs and jetting, but the way they had it dialed into that course, so you could pretty much just clamber your way around like your racing Hell's Gate on a lightweight 2-stroke that was driving and gripping as good as any of the 4-strokes. The 250 EXCF, just such an easy bike to ride. I mean, there's enough power and torque there delivered in a way that you can be aggressive and ride aggressive, and if you're a bit throttle happy, it doesn't have that overall horsepower to spit you offline or get you into trouble. Then there's the 350 EXCF. This is KTM's big one. This is their premier model. Everything they've learnt from every other model, every other 4-stroke model, they've developed into this one, super bike. It's their optimum capacity, bore, stroke, torque, horsepower. They've blended it all into this one unique bike.
This bike will turn the enduro world upside down.
I guess the main reason being is the 350 EXCF. It just makes dirt bike riding easy. You hop on this thing and you just ride the best you can ride, and it allows you to do that because everything's happening so easily. You're getting power when you want it, you're putting power to the ground, the chassis allows you to pick the lines you need, the gearbox ratios just fall into place so perfectly that you're barely stuffing a corner, getting the gear wrong, bogging down, going wide in a corner, tucking the front. None of that is happening. And as much as that's a good thing, and that's probably be the bike that for me to race on, I could pull my best result. At the same time, it's not the most exciting bike of the bunch, and you realise that when you've got everything else on offer. 450 EXC, that was a real surprise because in the company of other 450 enduro bikes, it's been a little bit understated compared to the others in terms of horsepower. You get on, it's smooth, it does all the right things. The new engine is a powerhouse. In fact, it felt like the most powerful bike of the whole range. That's a real credit to their EFI development. Generally, the bikes that have made the switch to EFI have been really crisp, smooth power, faultless power, but they've lost a bit of that raw grunt in comparison to the carburetted version. This year, for KTM, it's the complete opposite. They've gone from the Carby EXCR 450 that was to the new EFI version. Admittedly, it's got the new headwork and the smaller compact gearbox, but it's an absolute powerhouse now. 500 EXC, what a mellow monster that thing is. They've really tamed the thing down because in reality, when you've got a 500cc plus 4-stroke engine underneath you, even though it's the biggest bike, it was riding the rocks easier than anything else because it's got that inertia behind it, it's got that mass to sort of stay stable, and it has just instant torque. You can almost bring it down to a stall when you're climbing these rocks and trying to land on awkward surfaces. The motor can come down to a stall and then literally tractor back out from idle.
We've done a lot of work over the winter, sort of, on the 4-stroke. Last year we used a short-stroke engine, and that was horrendous in the wet. It was too snappy, and so that's the main reason I just went for the stock engine this year, stock bore and stroke, and it just rolls on that little bit smoother, which it might lose out a bit in the hard pack sometimes or in the motocross stuff, but it's bringing it back in the other stuff. So just trying to make an engine that was not brilliant in the dry and useless in the wet. Just trying to make it so you compromise with it so it's not as good in the dry, but it's way better in the wet. So just trying to get it in the middle a bit more. I think they've brought all the sort of rotating mass down a lot. The engine's a lot smaller, and it's always going to be a 500. It's never going to be like a 250F in the mud. But I think what we've done so far with it, and there's still some other things to try now, but I think what we've done with it and what the production bike is a massive leap forward from what the old one was, you know. It just feels like it's, you can sort of take it by the scruff of the neck a little bit.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
So at the head of the whole show, you've got Joachim Sala. What a legend. This guy, he is the life of the party, and it sets the tone for the launch when you rock up and you've got this character in your face, just so high on life. Joachim is the product manager of KTM Austria. He's basically in charge of, who gets to make these changes, and he oversees a lot of the development projects. He nearly won the Roof of Africa at one stage over Alfie Cox. He is a through and through hardcore dirt bike rider, and it's so typical of KTM to have someone like him running their show. And then you've got Eva. In such a male-dominated industry, Eva's just like this breath of fresh air that, is so accommodating, and she's just got everything organised. Race numbers, bike, this and that, there's your accommodation. And then Barney, what a legend. He's softly spoken, just cruisy sort of dude, and here's the guy who's in charge of the whole chassis development. One minute he's in charge of, designing the most innovative dirt bike frame available, and the next he's just cutting the rug on the dance floor. You've got Sebastian, again, just another sort of understated guy that you wouldn't expect to be the brain power behind the new 350 engine, and not only that, he has developed and is the reason why the 125 two-stroke, the 250 300 EXC two-stroke has been so successful. KTM brought him on board 14 years ago, and from a road racing, two-stroke European road racing background, Sebastian has just incorporated everything he knows and taken KTM to the next level. And they're not old scientists, they're young, happening kind of people. It's so interesting to see who is in charge, who is calling the shots. And then Giovanni Sala, he is just synonymous with KTM. He is their mascot. He is their on-hand tester. One minute he'll be entertaining guests at KTM corporate function, and the next he'll be transporting digital camera cards back from the photographers down to KTM HQ.
If Giovanni Sala was going to return to World Enduro, which model of the range would you pick and go race tomorrow against the young punks? Which model?
Well, for sure, I prefer the 350 because in this moment I find the bike really easy to use. And now in this moment I don't...
Bit old, bit sore bones, you need something easy?
No, it's the bike for the rider, want to race, and the hobby rider, because the power you can control.
Yep.
So it's very handy, very light, and so you can use easily. And in this moment I don't race so much because I stopped with my racer carrier. And so with the 350 I feel good. But them is so good I can use everybody. But if I must decide, I take the 350.
The 350. Well, there you have it, Australia. You heard it from the legend himself, Giovanni Sala. He can still ride. He's actually quite fast, always was. But now he just drinks and tells stories.
Really, not quite.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Myself and the two other journos from Australia met up with Greg Chambers at Singapore Airport. He's flown in from Perth, we flew from Sydney, and from there Greg has pretty much chauffeured us through the ultimate international launch. It's a big deal on these launches when you're dealing with flights, hire cars, the location being 5 hours away from the airport. There's quite a lot of logistics to making these things happen. It's in his best interest to make sure we get photographer time. As journos for our magazine, we've got our own deadlines to meet. We've got to make sure we've got the right action shots provided. There's a lot there's a lot that goes on. It's not just all about, you know, having fun and riding bikes. We've actually got a job to do. And Greg is just there to assist that the Australian pocket, if you like, gets looked after, and we sort of hold our own in that regard, or you know, I sort of like to think I do. I make sure that I get good time in on the bikes. I make sure I get good time in with the photographers to get the action shots I need. And Greg is there to facilitate all that happening.
Get up it!
One of the added bonuses courtesy of KTM Australia is that following the launch, they put us up in Milan for 2 extra nights. And it sounds, you know, as much as it sounds like just being spoilt, it really was the right thing to do, because we'd just flown 20 hours to get to Italy. We're at the launch for 2 days, and then it's a big ask to just jump back on a plane and spend another 20 hours in the air after you've done all that. So in typical Aussie fashion, we just rocked into Milan, found a hotel, and then just got amongst it like tourists.
No tourist has a camera like that.
They don't, because we're not tourists.
We had 1 day and 2 nights there, so we couldn't do too much, but you burn the candle at both ends when you've got these opportunities. So you want to live it, you want to eat the food, experience the culture, the women in Italy, my goodness. This is basically what goes on when you're travelling as a journalist for a magazine. It's something I'll never take for granted, and I'm just pretty grateful for the opportunities I've had. It's been awesome.
Spin that Haviana, come on.
That's it. Let's have something to eat, and goodbye, good day, and see you next time in Australia.
Cheers.
Ciao Australia. We see around the world.
Thank you.